We are lucky today again to have Robert Buxton with us. And I know everybody loved him when he was here last time, and actually before because he's been with us several times because he's so incredible. So he's gonna talk a little bit in between playing, and he will, I guess, now come up and introduce himself. Robert is going to come up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Catherine, for having me. Yeah, I've been coming here for many years now. And you know, Catherine's also a musician, plays piano. Yeah, really, I'm going to embarrass you. I listen to her recordings with her band. Am I allowed to? It's really good. Really good stuff. So, and by the way, people think classical music that's what mainly I do. They think, oh, it's something so far removed, it's in the past and such. Classical music used to be a lot more like popular music in the 19th century. It used to be maybe a little more fun even. People would improvise in concerts. So I figure I might do that for you with your help. If you can give me a few random notes, we'll make a theme. So give me a note, please. Any. What was it? Blah. Okay. Yeah, you have the alphabet from A to G, and you can sharp or flat them too.
B flat.
B flat. So we have an A, we have a B flat. Okay, I feel like I'm running an auction here. Okay, now what do we got? What do we got for 200? Another? I need a couple more notes.
G.
G. Maybe one or two more. That's already a nice thing there.
C.
C. Let's do that. Da 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 dee. Okay, see it out. So a little spontaneity never hurt anybody, so it could. And that just opens up a lot of doors for me because I think we have this feeling, okay, classical music is written music. Yeah, it is. But they were more flexible with it in the past than we might be today. The art of arrangement, for example, is something I love because it allows me to pretend to be something I'm not. Any excuse to not be a pianist, I'll take it. And you know, I've probably heard this before. I love the violin, but it's too much trouble to learn it for me. It's too late for me to switch instruments. So I'm playing all these arrangements on the piano. And I'm going to start with some of Robert Schumann's arrangements of Paganini. Yeah, these are not played so much. If you like Schumann, I could throw in an original Schumann piece. But yeah, Schumann's Paganini arrangements, you don't hear them all that much. You hear Liszt's versions of Paganini more, which I played for you a year or two ago. Went through those, had to find more things. So Schumann did his Paganini arrangements before Liszt in 1832 as a young man. Because Schumann, like Liszt and so many others, was blown away with Paganini and his violin playing. He heard him. They all heard him. Rossini said. Rossini, famous for having no tragedy in his life, pretty much. He said there were 2 times in his life that he cried. The first time was when he heard Paganini play the violin. The second time was when his favorite pasta dish fell overboard a boat into a lake. So that's Rossini for you. Now, Paganini, you either loved him or you hated him. Obviously, the romantics like Schumann and Liszt and Rossini, they adored him because he was like a rock star. He was just a rock star. He was really not like how we think of classical music today. He was just this larger than life, over the top. And then the people who didn't like him, well, they didn't like him. They thought he was possessed. He was such a wild personality, both on stage and actually off stage too. I won't tell you the details, and so this is like improvisation. The art of arrangement is when one composer takes another composer's music and they rework it. In this case, from solo violin, which is Paganini, the caprices for solo violin, to the piano, which Schumann is doing here. Whenever you have an arrangement, it's like a literary translation. It's not Google Translate. It's not that. It's a little more freely done, and you hear the personality of the arranger or the translator just as much as the personality of the original creator. So it's maybe 50-50. You read Shakespeare in Russian, Pasternak, who wrote Dr. Zhivago, he did translations of Shakespeare. It's not Shakespeare, it's Pasternak's Shakespeare, seen through his eyes. So the same with this. This is Paganini, but through the eyes of Schumann, through the ears of Schumann, rather. I'm going to talk about each one. They're rather short, each one. And the first one, actually, let me make sure my tech is working, because I'm a very low-tech person. I'm talking about the 19th century and my level of GPS or driving. I am 19th century. So the first one, you're going to hear why Paganini was so controversial. If you're used to Mozart and Haydn and you hear this, it's a shock. So here it is. Paganini, you get a sense of the character that he was. He was a character. And, oh yeah.
Paganini on the violin, would he be playing all those fast little treble notes that you were playing on the piano?
That's a good question. So Schumann adds things to make it a piano piece.
That's right.
But what he's mainly adding is things in the left hand. Liszt added more fluff in his arrangements. Schumann actually did two things. One was he wrote piano accompaniments to the original violin pieces, which are rarely played. In this, he puts, generally speaking, he invents some kind of accompaniment in the left hand. And what the violin would do is pretty much the right hand, this. Those things. It's a solo violin, and then of course, Schumann dresses it up a bit with all of that. So that's pretty much what's going on here.
It's pretty amazing. I just don't think of a violin being able to play that many notes so fast.
Well, right, yeah,
That's I guess, the greatness of Paganini.
it is, but through the lens of Schumann, I think it's equally compelling. It's just different. It's as much Schumann as Paganini, and when I play it, I feel like I'm playing Schumann because I played a lot of his original pieces. It has that aura of Schumann too. You know what I mean? So the next one is similar. It's called La Chasse, the Hunt, and that's the original violin part. Of course, Schumann adds and this stuff in the left hand. That's the sound of horn calls. In those days, they used French horns for hunting because you couldn't go buy a duck whistle at Walmart or something like now. If Paganini lived in rural North Carolina, maybe that's what he would do. This piece would sound different. And
They have to play that. They're able to play the two strings at the same time to make this the dual sound.
double stops, of course. So yeah, that's the thing. This is the La Chasse, the hunt. The horn calls were a symbol or an emblem almost of the countryside in that time period. So, here it is. people think, I really believe strongly that classical music, whatever that word means, because I don't know what it means, because it's talking about the Middle Ages or the 20th century, it's so many different, but whatever we call classical music, it really is fun. It's not some sort of serious, dry exercise in being miserable. It shouldn't be. And Paganini, he may not have been the best person, but he certainly knew how to have fun. So sometimes those two go together, sometimes unfortunately they don't. But anyway, one of the ways, you're asking about the violin playing 2 or 3 notes at once. They can do 2 notes at once. But to do more than 2 notes, usually they'll roll it, meaning not like a bakery roll, but like, sorry, dad joke, but like, here's a chord on the piano, it's a bunch of notes played at the same time, like that. I can do that, I can just press it. Actually, in the old days, even pianists and harpsichordists, they would never do that. They would always make the chord a little, or they'd break it a little. But that's how violinists do it. They strum like that. And that's how guitarists play, where they strum, and that's what this next one is, I think, imitating the guitar. And then I looked into it. Paganini was a great guitarist and wrote lots of guitar music. Go figure. He was a rock star. See? So here's the next one. This one's a little more introverted than the others. Maybe it's Paganini before coffee. So. It sounds maybe like a Neapolitan love song with the guitar or something. Because Paganini was, well, it wasn't Italy back then, but he was from what's now Italy, from Genoa. And the next 2 are comic, but you might not laugh out loud necessarily, but it's maybe not that kind of humor. But it's more like wit or sarcasm, something along those lines. And the nickname for this is the Devil's Laugh. It really sounds like some sort of evil laugh from a movie or TV show. Someone, probably his publisher or somebody gave it that nickname because of his association with the devil, with being possessed. There's a lot of stories like this in music. Robert Johnson, the blues guitarist, the blues musician, you know the story? They say that he sold his soul to the devil and stuff. This is a mythology that's as old as the hills, and Paganini was part of that. So here it is, the Devil's Laugh. And again, think of like an evil James Bond villain or something laughing. It's not the good kind of laugh. It's the maniacal, that sort of laugh, I think. So here it is. So another comic one. This one I have a story or a scenario that every time I play it, I imagine this story. So picture that you're at a restaurant with somebody, you don't know them too well, but they're an acquaintance of yours. And you're having a pleasant conversation, giggling, mostly small talk. Well, the waiter comes and pours the water, a little drop spills, and this acquaintance of yours flips out, angry, screaming, hitting the table, making a scene, and you're embarrassed. The waiter walks away, and your acquaintance just goes right back to talking to you as if nothing happened. That's this piece. My friend has a dog that's like that, sweetest dog, and then the wind blows and they go berserk, barking and biting, and then back to being sweet. I love dogs and cats, don't get me wrong, I have cats, but that's just one case. So try to imagine that. I think that's what this is. It's like Jekyll and Hyde, these two different things. Paganini, pardon the very corny joke, I think he was a high-strung person. You know? Okay. And these are strings too, by the way. Piano is a stringed instrument. So. Thank you. The next, oh yeah,
Schumann's my favorite.
really, okay. One of mine.
And from what you were just saying, one of the reasons is talking about fun, but just so many surprises.
Oh yeah.
Just like amazing surprises. But I'm sorry, I'm breaking up your pace. But I've never heard any of yours. And
Yeah.
every time they composer work, is this a suite or are these separate works?
This is a set, and Schumann did 2 sets of Paganini arrangements.
Okay.
And so these are based pretty strictly on Paganini's caprices, but again, it's Schumann, it's in his complete work. This is his Opus 3, I'm playing Opus 3, and then there's another set which I'm working on, going to keep me out of trouble, you know, I have all this work to do, to learn all this stuff. He has his Opus 10, it's a little later, but it's more Paganini adaptations like this. And, you know, I wondered, this ties in perfectly with, yeah, there was a,
No, I mean, but what you're saying, and you're saying, Paganini was a little.
well, so was Schumann.
Was like always, I mean, hysterical.
He was.
Fun.
Fun, but also very dark.
Yeah.
Schumann was, he had the mental illness. He was bipolar or schizophrenic. I don't know what, they didn't diagnose people back then the way, you know, they didn't know. But Schumann had a very difficult life. And there's a darkness in his music that's unique. But also, you mentioned fun because,
Surprise, just surprise.
yeah, he wanted to be a novelist, Schumann. And the novelists he loved were E.T.A. Hoffmann and Jean-Paul. Their novels, they're not novels, they're novellas, sorry. And they have these sudden scene shifts, like you're watching a movie, there's something going on, then splice to the next thing. That's Schumann. I think he also got that from Paganini, because one of the reasons composers do arrangements is to learn. You learn by imitation. What did Bach do as a young man? This is Schumann as a young man. Bach took Vivaldi, Marcello, etc., etc. He took mainly Italian Baroque composers' music, and he arranged it for either organ or harpsichord, from oboe, from other things. He did these arrangements. He damaged his eyesight because he did it at night by candlelight while his 25 kids were sleeping. But that's how you learn, how the composers learn. And this next one sounds like Schumann and not at all like Paganini. And the reason is that all the others I just played, you hear the violin part prominently in the right hand. Here it's flipped. Schumann takes Paganini's violin music, he puts it in the left hand, it's accompaniment. Here. Just, that's the accompaniment. And then he puts his own motif in the right hand, which you hear more prominently. That's all right. That's very, very Schumann. there's a quirkiness to Schumann, but also a tragic feeling. This piece is fully Schumann, even though Paganini is there under the surface. So think of it this way, it's like all this time, the past 5 pieces, he's like a painter copying the masters. Now he's found his voice. So here's the last one. This is a beautiful but very dark arrangement. You know, since you mentioned Schumann and we've been talking about this, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I think I'll play now a short original piece of Schumann's. This is a piece for oboe, so I've arranged it for piano, but it's Schumann, 100% Schumann, no Paganini. This is his Romance Opus 94, number 2, and it's one of his latest compositions. Schumann lived only to be 46. It's quite tragic. And there's a sadness here that's just, it's beautiful, but it's very sad. You know, Schumann created 2 alter egos, personalities for himself, Florestan and Eusebius. Florestan was the over-the-top, passionate extrovert, like that one, that piece. Eusebius had the blues. He was quieter, he was introverted, he was sad. This next one is more of that character, Eusebius. And many people say, look, that's his bipolar disorder. It's the 2 sides of his personality, and it's very interesting. So there's something that happens in this, and also the last one, there's a swirling, I call it the swirling effect. He doesn't hear, look, you know, you hear that accompaniment in the middle of this. The piano concerto in A minor has the same thing. It's just this wild, swirling thing. Van Gogh's Starry Night. I had a professor who said, that's like Van Gogh's paintings with the swirling sky. There's another artist who had a mental illness. I thought the connection is brilliant. So here's this Schumann piece, the Romance in A major. thinking, a friend of my mom's from the Soviet Union, you know, from Russia, Mother Russia. And my dad's, of course, an immigrant from Southern Virginia, I might have told you. So that's why I play gospel too. But so this friend was a prominent recording artist in the Soviet Union and knew a lot of the greats like Richter and Gilels and Oistrakh, recorded them. And I was a dumb 14-year-old kid. I still consider myself dumb in a lot of ways, ask my wife, but you know, that I was playing some Schumann, and he came to me, he said, this Schumann music you play, it was a similar piece, very quiet like this. It is like watercolors. You have to play like watercolors. I said, you're right. And that's this piece too. When Schumann has that sadness, it's just like the end of that, it's all watercolors. I have one more story about Schumann, then I'll play the last, this major piece that scares me a little. Talk about that in a bit. So, there was a pianist named Walter Gieseking. He was French-born German. He was kind of French/German. Now, I will preface this by saying the story is rather cruel and heartless and would not fly today, thank goodness. Walter Gieseking was not a great guy. He was kind of sympathetic to the Nazis, not a good person, okay? Just get that out of the way. And his teaching style reflected this. So there was, in the 1950s, a young boy was playing a Schumann piece, I think the first sonata or something by Schumann, in a master class, a public lesson with a bunch of people. Walter Gieseking sitting there judging this poor kid. So the kid plays, Walter Gieseking stands up at the end, he says, all right, here's what's gonna happen. You are gonna play the piece from the beginning again, and don't stop, no matter what I do. Okay, so this kid's playing, and Walter Gieseking, while he's playing, starts shouting insults into his ear, shaking him, telling him he's an idiot, he can't play, all these horrible things. And the kid breaks down crying. And Walter Gieseking sits down, the boy's crying, he's finished the piece, and he smiles. He said, now you are in the correct mindset to understand Schumann. It's a cruel and horrible story, but the point is that, yeah, Schumann was not, as my Russian teacher would say, you know, I remember someone was playing also Schumann for him, and he said, my teacher, Vladimir Yelgo, he said, you play well, but it's right notes, but wrong feeling. You are playing like you are reading newspaper and eating sausage in the morning. It's not suffering, you know? And that's true, it's so true. So now I'm gonna play Brahms. This is Brahms's first book, there's two of them, and I haven't learned the second. His first book of Paganini variations, more Paganini. Okay, this piece is so hard, so please forgive me. Yeah, good luck to me, good luck to you. Just a little grace here, because this is impossible. And I just learned it. So, now Brahms knew both Robert and Clara Schumann very well. He walked up to their doorstep as a young man for advice, and the Schumanns adopted him pretty much, as if he was their own son. And Brahms was there as Schumann's health deteriorated. Schumann had to be institutionalized. There was a suicide attempt. It's really horrible. But Brahms was there every step of the way and developed a very close personal and musical connection with Clara Schumann, Robert's widow, a great pianist and composer herself. They wrote letters for the rest of their lives. Of course, Clara Schumann was like 20 or 30 years older than Brahms. I'm not People magazine. I hate this, but some people speculate, oh, maybe they were romantically. I don't know, it's not our business. But they had this close connection. And Brahms, of course, in many ways very different from Schumann, although he absorbed, the Schumanns, he absorbed a lot from them. Because Brahms is a paradox. On the one hand, he is this guy from northern Germany, from Hamburg, near the North Sea. It's an austere place, you know, cold and rainy, and there's a heavy Germanic, Teutonic thing with Brahms' music, you know. But at the same time, he lived in Vienna mostly and made friends with all these Hungarian gypsies. And so, you know, why did Brahms write the Hungarian dances? These are fun pieces. That's the wrong chord, but you know, that's Brahms too. It's not all, you know, serious and stuff. And here's one of the Paganini variations. It's folk music, it's gypsy music. With that, that thing. It's fun. So Brahms was this combination of serious and playful. But as a young man, there's photos of him, he was very distinguished looking as a young man. As he got older, he looked more and more like Santa Claus. You know, actually, I was in South Carolina at a gas station. There was a guy on a Harley Davidson with this big white beard. He looked like Brahms. I'm sorry, I didn't know. I'm glad I didn't tell him. But he really looked like Brahms. And Brahms, the reason I say he was a big guy, he had big hands. And I happen to not be built like a football linebacker. So maybe that's why it's hard for me to play this music. But anyways, that's Brahms. Brahms he bases these variations on the 24th Caprice of Paganini. You know? Everybody knows that's the famous one. Each variation gets further and further away from Paganini, and more into Brahms. By the time you're at the end or the middle, you don't hear Paganini anymore. And Brahms wrote this originally as finger exercises, torture. And then he decided that they were musically interesting, so he turned it into a piece to perform. So really good luck to me and you, and really scared of it. might end with something lighter. Do you want to hear some gospel or some Willie Nelson or something? Gospel. So, you want to hear Willie Nelson? I do. I can play "Crazy" by Willie Nelson. You know that? Yeah, because a lot of the music I played was crazy. Okay, I'll do that. That's something a little different. But remember, my dad is Southern, so Russian mom, Southern band. I'm a Russian redneck. Quick one. Oh darn it, it's fine. I'm sorry. I keep my watch. Is it okay if I do one? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. This is very fast. It's a gospel song that I really didn't like the first time I heard it because I thought it sounded like something from the Benny Hill Show. But it grew on me. It's called "Goodbye World, Goodbye" by Mosey Lister.
there's a little bit of food up here, but also there is a happy hour in the bar, which starts now. So if you want to make your way over there, then do that, or and also get some food.
Oh yeah, maybe I'll get some. Thanks for having me. This thing on. Oh, thanks for.